It's been a minute since I've done one of these. Off to just a great start. Can't even speak English anymore. But it's been a minute since I've done one of these. It's been a busy summer, and I'm so incredibly grateful to WFAN and everyone. I've worked on CBS Sports Network, SNY. The summer I've had, I'm incredibly grateful. And guess what? Football season's around the corner. And once football season's back, I'll be back doing these probably, hopefully, as often as possible. But the summer's just been hectic and busy. But I wanted to sit down for a minute and get this off my chest before we get into September and the pennant race and the end of the season. I had to talk about the New York Yankees because the New York Yankees are the most infuriating team to watch in baseball. And I'll explain. Every single night, no matter what happens, you could sit down and watch the New York Yankees and be in just pure shock and awe of how incredible and talented and historic to a lot of extents this team is, whether it's Aaron Judge and what he's doing. Sit back and appreciate the greatness. I'll make that argument right now. Every day, just sit back and appreciate what you're watching because we don't get to watch this often. Honestly, he's the greatest hitter I've ever seen. And then the other night, he goes out and makes that play in center field, throws back behind the runner, double play. This Yankee team is insane. Aaron Judge, what he's doing is the greatest thing I've ever seen. Juan Soto in the lineup with the Yankees, it's not normal. Him hitting in front of Judge, what he's doing this year, getting overshadowed by Judge, but he, a 25-year-old World Series champion who's already one of the best players in baseball, is having a career year at 25 when he's already been incredible, exceeding his home runs. He's batting 300 in a league where no one hits 300, two guys hitting 300. They both have more, or I think Soto has more walks than he has strikeouts this year. Judge has 100-something walks also. It's so funny when you look at the league leaders, they're both like at 110 walks each, and the next closest in the AL is like at 63. You have the incredible story of the rookie Luis Gil battling back after the injury and the talent he's shown this year. Carlos Rodon will give you an incredible start here and there. Stroman, the fire he gives you. And then Stanton might be more impressive than anyone. I was working the game when he got down on a knee, hit a slider that was down and away in the opponent's batter's box, which he struck out on how many times in our lives have we seen Giancarlo Stanton strike out on that slider? And he hit it 450 fucking feet into Monument Park. It was insane. That might be more insane than anything Judge or Soto has done all year. You have the swagger with Jazz and obviously Verdugo, although Verdugo sucked. And at the same time, this team is infuriating because they have games like last night where they go into DC against the actual worst pitcher in baseball, Patrick Corbin, and they cannot score. They're throwing the ball around. Guys like Trevino in the lineup every day. Verdugo, a guy who I mentioned who brings swag, in the lineup over a guy like Dominguez for reasons that are just contracts. Hey, we don't want him to get a year of eligibility. And by the way, today is the first day that Jason Dominguez can be brought up without it affecting his eligibility, meaning it won't count as a year this year if he's brought up today. This won't cost them a year on the back end for the Yankees. They'd still have their extra year of control that they covet so much. And I get why they covet it, because they need a guy on a cheap contract if they're going to be paying Juan Soto $600 million this offseason, and they better. My point is, there are so many frustrating things. So Dominguez should be up today. That's number one. Wells not starting. And then you bring him in as a pinch hitter late in the game and he gets a hit, a double, he walks. All of a sudden, he's a great hitter. Obviously, he's a great hitter. The one day he starts against the lefty, he hits a home run. The infuriating mismanagement. And by the way, Anthony Rizzo, 2 hits, a homer, a nice defensive play. I know he stunk earlier in the year, but get DJ's ass out of here already. So this team is infuriating while they're also entertaining. And I don't know how to look at this team. And it's so up and down. And the proof that they've been so up and down, obviously they start the season great. Then they're under 500 for about 2 months. And again, it was 2 months of 7 games under 500. It wasn't a short stretch. Anyone who thought it was a short stretch, for 2 months, over 2 months, the team was 7 games under 500. So if you think it was just a short stretch, the Yankees were just cold for a little bit, no, you're wrong. They were a bad baseball team for a while. The point is that the team goes back and forth between being infuriating and incredibly fun to watch. And the proof The proof is today against the Nationals. They're going to have their 8th consecutive rubber game. They've played teams like Cleveland, which is a good team, but they've also played Chicago, who stinks. They've played Detroit, who stinks. They played Toronto, who stinks. Texas, who's not a very good team. And in every single one of these series, they've had to go to a rubber match. It's had to go to a third game of the series with the series tied at 1. 8 consecutive series. The entire month of August, they've had rubber matches now. And against the Nationals, just beat them. Oh, well, they're winning series. So you know what? They keep winning the series. What's the big deal? Because what has cost the Yankees in the past in the postseason is everything we're seeing in these games. Poor pitching, bad bullpen mismanagement, poor defensive plays, terrible fundamentals. Gleyber Torres, it's a right-handed batter. You're the second baseman. Everyone knows at the Little League level, you know that your job is to cover second base. Although the Little League level, the guy who was the second baseman who was supposed to cover first base, or the outfielder was supposed to come down, cover first base. That didn't happen, obviously. You get it. But the point is, you're Gleyber Torres. How many times do you have to see this? Right away, I was talking to Manuel Barbari. I was working the game. I was like, that's on Gleyber. And eventually they gave the error to Gleyber Torres because you're the second baseman with a right-handed hitter at the plate. I played second base. I know. You move over. I played third base also, but most recently in my league, I played second base. You go cover the second base bag. The catcher is going to make that throw every time. You're supposed to be there. The second you see the runner going, you're supposed to be at second base. It's infuriating, and this is how they've lost games in the playoffs. The bats go cold in the biggest spot, and I don't care. I know he's the greatest. He's the king, whatever. He's the Prince of New York. Jalen Brunson's the king of New York. Aaron Judge in the biggest spot comes up small again. He's come up small over and over in the playoffs, a 200 batting average in the playoffs. He stinks in the postseason, and he's hit into 20 double plays this year. And in a spot where all could have been forgotten, the Yankees' terrible offense, squandered opportunities, can't hit against the actual worst pitcher in baseball, Patrick Corbin, the defensive miscues, the errors, the mental mistakes, Garrett Cole giving up 2 bombs of home runs to guys who were in diapers 3 weeks ago. All that could have been forgotten because the bases were loaded and nobody was out. And Aaron Judge, the supposed best hitter in baseball, the guy I just told you was having an historic season that the likes we've never seen, maybe from this guy who I'm wearing on my shirt, Ken Griffey Jr., since then, we haven't seen seasons like that. He's at the plate, and what does he do? Hits into a double play. I'm sorry, that's not good enough. All the home runs, you can keep them. I need you to come through in that spot. I need, when the lights are brightest, I need you to be the superstar. And this is not even a knock on Aaron Judge because it's hard to knock him, but that's the point. This is what we've seen. These Yankee teams that haven't come through in the Aaron Judge era have not come through in the big moments. The bats go silent, bad miscues, they tighten up. They clench up, their asses get all tight, and they make mistakes over and over and over. Mental mistakes, physical mistakes on the field, on the base paths, at the plate. That's what's infuriating about this Yankee team. And when you look through the American League, because everyone wants to argue, well, this Yankee team, they're better than anyone else in the AL. Who else is going to beat them in the playoffs? With all the negatives that you talk about, they're winning series, they're likely going to win the division, they're up to win the division. Come on, they're going to make the playoffs. They'll probably win the division. They'll be fine. And who are you scared of? You scared of the Astros? You shouldn't be scared of the Astros. You're the only reason you're scared of the Astros is because of the name Astros. They're not close to the same team they were a couple years ago. That's true. Seattle's not even going to make the playoffs. They're the best. They're the best starting rotation in baseball. The American League Central, I mean, come on, they're all just beating up on each other. Minnesota, Cleveland, and KC, they're all going to make the playoffs. Great. I hope they all make the playoffs because I know the Yankees would beat all of them. Baltimore's beat up. Their lineup's so young. Brandon Hyde's not a great manager. He hasn't proven anything. And speaking of managers, first-year manager in Cleveland, first-year manager in Houston. None of these guys have managed in big games before, so you think Aaron Boone is a detriment? Nope. He's got more managerial experience in the playoffs than any of these guys. Experience doesn't make it good, but that's besides the point. So what are you so scared of? This team's they have the easiest shot to the World Series they've had in years. This is the year the Yankees are going to go. They finally have Juan Soto. The rotation looks good. The bullpen's shaky, but hey, they'll patch it together enough. But the problem is when you look around, it's not the other teams that you should be afraid of. It's the Yankees you should be afraid of because no matter who they're playing, and this is what they've proven, it could be the Washington Nationals, it could be the Chicago White Sox. They're going to throw a dud in there where they just don't show up. The bullpen blows it. You know that I feel like since June 15th, how many comeback wins have the Yankees had? If they get down in a game, they're like a bully, the Yankees. When they're up, when they're feeling good about themselves, they beat you down. Juan Soto hits home runs, Stanton's hitting home runs, Judge is hitting home runs. But in the big spots, when they have to play from behind, when you jump out and come at them first, they go run and hide in the corner and cry. They can't come back in these games. Have you seen this team? This team, they go down 1-0, the game's over. They don't play from behind at all. If it's 3-0 after 5 innings, forget about it. Over, done. This team has no will to fight, no will to battle back. And this is what the problem is. Because the biggest detriment, the biggest thing standing in the way of the New York Yankees making a championship run this year, the only team that stands in their way is themselves. The New York Yankees are the only team that can hold themselves back. Their bullpen, their mismanagement, their bad decisions in the lineup, bad decisions in the bullpen, miscues on the field, mental errors, bad fundamentals, and the bats going silent in the biggest spots. That's what's going to hold the Yankees back in the playoffs. So it doesn't matter who the opponent is. Is Cleveland great? No. Is Baltimore great? No. None of these teams are great. Houston, they're not great this year. The league is as mediocre as ever. And it's kind of a shame. And my theory behind it, real quick, because I wanted this to be pretty short, and I think it has been so far. But my point is, the theory is that Major League Baseball is mediocre. You know why Major League Baseball is super mediocre this year? Is because there's no incentive to be great. The Dodgers and the Padres keep going for it, but every other team, why should they go for it to that level? Every team makes the playoffs, and everyone knows once you get in the playoffs, it's a crapshoot. Everyone wants to keep talking about Arizona and Texas and the runs they went on, and Washington and Philadelphia, the hot teams. They just got hot late in the season, and they went on magical runs. Guess what talking about those teams does? Guess what looking at those teams for inspiration does? Why should I go for it? Why should I trade for the extra player? Why should I trade the extra prospect? Why should I spend the extra dollar for the free agent? You saw it in free agency. No one wants to sign these free agents. Why should I have to do that? I could be mediocre and go on a magical Cinderella run. The way baseball is set up now, it incentivizes mediocrity, actually. And then the trade deadline being all the way this early in the season, it should be pushed back by 2 weeks, because if you pushed it back by 2 weeks, more teams would be out of it. Oh, it's a seller's market. No shit, it's a seller's market. Because why should any of these teams? They're all still in it. And you're telling them, look at Arizona, look at Washington, look at all these Philly. They just got in and went on a magical run. So you're telling them that if all they have to do is get in to be great and go on a World Series run, then why should any of these teams that are fringe playoff teams sell? At that point in the season now, 2 weeks later, a lot of those teams had fallen off by then. So of course, whatever, it's idiotic. Baseball is they are so dumb, the people who run the sport. I can't even. But the biggest thing standing in the way of the New York Yankees' success this year in 2024 is the New York Yankees. That's it. That's who they need to overcome. They need to overcome themselves and the things we've seen bite them 1,000 times. So, it's just a game in August. What do you care? It's one game against the Nationals. That's the point, because we've seen this God knows how many times over and over again. That this is what cost this team. Losing games like that. And so the New York Yankees, if they want to go on a serious run, if they want to be taken seriously, if they want to be contenders, Aaron Judge, if you want to be great, if you want to be talked about with Derek Jeter and Mickey Mantle and Babe Ruth and all those guys, they won championships. You have to win. You've had your opportunities. This isn't Don Mattingly, who barely ever made it to the playoffs and didn't have the teams around him. Aaron Judge has been on a team with a $300 million payroll every year of his career. And granted, some of those teams were flawed despite the payroll. Sure, you have to look at the rosters. But guess how in 10 years from now, when history looks back on this, they're going to look at a $300 million roster, a team that made it to the playoffs almost every year in his career, and a guy who didn't come up in the biggest spots and has terrible playoff numbers. You want to change that, Aaron Judge? Now's your opportunity. You're having another incredible year, career year, another year that's better than your 2022 season, which is insane. The contract's worth every penny if you pull through in the postseason. That's what it depends on now. You have an opportunity to change the narrative, not only for yourself, but for this Yankee team. It's time to do it. And do I trust that this Yankee team is going to do it? No. Are the opponents weak? Sure. Are the flaws on the Yankees the same as the flaws? Oh, there's flaws elsewhere. What? There's no perfect team. Yeah, but guess what? The Yankees are built to win a championship now, and I don't trust them because I've seen over and over again the same things biting them in the ass. And so my biggest concern with the New York Yankees is the New York Yankees. Now, I'm wearing a really cool hat from Siegelman Stable, but if you can't get your hands on a Siegelman Stable hat, maybe you can't. Go to Huga House. Huga House sells really cool hats too. Huga House, Aaron Rodgers, you see him wearing it. Use code RAMI, 15% off your first order. That's RAMI. and you'll get 15% off your first order, and you'll support me and help me do the things I love, and continue to work hard at WFA and all that. So until next time, like, subscribe, share the podcast with a friend. Rami Levy Podcast, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Till next time, follow me, TikTok, Instagram. See ya.